I bet all of you have a parent or a grandparent or even a friend that at some point bought or was given a new device and asked you to help them out because for them it was just too confusing. At this point, you probably know exactly who that person is, right? Well, what if I told you it's not entirely their fault? In fact, I'd argue that in some cases it's not their fault at all. It's the developers of the device that did a poor job, and trust me, as a developer, I was guilty of the exact same thing. Before we begin, if you're new here, hi, my name is Tomasz, and together with my co-founder Aljaž, we're building a 10 gigabit router. Now, I know what you might be thinking to yourself right now. Why? I mean, there's hundreds of routers on the market. Why would anyone bother building yet another one? So, I need to rephrase this statement a little bit. We're building a community of networking enthusiasts, power users, and even regular people that don't know anything about networking as long as their home Wi-Fi is working properly. And our router, called Gateway, we believe is the foundation to achieve those goals. But before I explain how we plan to get there, let me first tell you a story from my previous career. You see, in 2013, I founded a company called Codable, and its mission was, or still is actually, to gather all the best WordPress developers in the world in one single place, and rather than make them compete against one another for projects, have them be colleagues, remote co-workers in a sense, or even become friends with one another. You could say that with this project I was scratching my own itch, because at the time I have just moved to where I live now with my family, which is pretty much the farthest from our Slovenian capital of Ljubljana. In fact, I live so close to the Hungarian border, I walk my dogs to it pretty much on a daily basis. But this move came at a cost, and that was the fact that this area is quite underdeveloped in the IT ecosystem, which, having just gotten two babies or twins at the time, forced me to look online for work, and the biggest giant at the time was called Elance. But Elance had a problem. They had no filters, meaning that anyone, and I mean literally anyone, could make an account and start offering their services, regardless whether they were any good at those services or not, which meant I had to compete against developers that offers their services for like $4 per hour, which is not only, well, unrealistic, but also impossible for me to get even remotely close to those kinds of numbers. Now, because I consider myself a problem solver first and foremost, I discussed this problem with a client of mine that I have actually met on Elance and had a good rapport with, and he immediately fell in love with the idea that I proposed to him. Let's build our own version of Elance, but with a twist. We control both sides of the equation, so the supply and demand, and make sure one side does not outweigh the other, which pretty much always leads to some kind of imbalance and dissatisfaction. But there was a problem. How does someone like me, a nobody living in the middle of nowhere with no significant connections or career to speak of, compete with a Silicon Valley funded startup, that has raised millions and millions of dollars? Well, the answer to that is actually quite simple. You pick a niche and initially focus on that niche and that niche alone. And the niche we picked was WordPress. The main reason being it was a large enough market that we knew would be possible for us to build a business around. And build the business we have, because I'm very proud of the fact that Codable, which is the company name, is still going strong, has been profitable from 2015 onward, I think, and whenever I meet the folks that are still working there, I'm greeted with nothing but a hug and a huge smile on their faces. And yes, the company is still providing WordPress services, and yes, I do still own some shares of it, but what I want to emphasize here is the fact that for me, it was never about WordPress, at least not the code part of it. What I believe makes the project so successful, and the fact that it powers something like 40% of the internet out there supports that belief, are the people. And the best example of this approach are their annual conferences called WordCamps. I've probably been to around 50 of these WordCamps, both across Europe and the US, and even gave a couple of talks at them throughout the years. But one thing I believe is the most relevant for this video is the amount of non-developers that attended these conferences. You see, the WordPress community has one thing going for it that I think made it what it is today, and that's the fact that everyone is welcome to contribute. But what is more important is that they can contribute in any way they want. You like to lead teams? Fine, lead teams. You know multiple languages? Translate stuff. You like to design? Fine, open your Photoshop and have a go at it. Want to organize a WordCamp itself or a WordPress meetup in your hometown? Sure, here's a couple of $1,000 so that you can cover all the expenses. See where I'm going with this? If not, let me say it out loud. Us making the router isn't the goal, it's the starting point. Just like WordPress needed to exist for a community to emerge around it in the first place, and here I do mean the code itself, we need something to exist for us to be able to do the same, and we strongly believe that Gateway is that starting point. And from around 600 pre-orders that we've gotten so far in just 14 days of our 3-month pre-order period, you guys seem to agree. And in case you didn't pre-order yet, I'll leave a link to our pre-order page down in the description. Now, once we finalize the development of Gateway, which we're working hard towards and hope will happen sometime in the next 3 months, we then plan to shift our focus to the operating system. As I explained in one of my previous videos, we decided to ship the development kit with OpenWRT simply because it's the fastest way for us to get the device out of the door and into your hands. But we do have different plans, long term. In fact, you could say we have much more ambitious plans, but before I reveal them, I want to first discuss the problems that I believe many of you have encountered as well, when it comes to router operating systems, that is. The first of which is the user experience, and here I'll again refer to my experiences from the Codeable times. You see, at one point, we decided we're going to optimize what's called a user journey, which is exactly what you might imagine it means in this context. So, a user having a journey through the interface in order to arrive at their destination, which usually meant their WordPress issues resolved. At Codeable, that meant them submitting a description of their problems, receiving an estimate, picking a developer they wanted to work with, and finally depositing the money to our escrow service, which is where it would stay until the job was completed. This last step, so depositing the money, is called a conversion point because it's where a user becomes an actual paying customer, and the success of conversions is usually comparing the numbers of converted users to the number of users that started the journey in the first place. Because not everyone that submitted a project ended paying for it, obviously. And as you might imagine, increasing the number of conversions almost always means higher revenue for the company. And it's here where many companies make a big mistake, because they only look at the numbers, so they measure it quantitatively, but completely forget about people and don't do any kind of qualitative analysis. And I know why that is. It's because the numbers part is pretty easy. You look at the steps in your customer journey, measure the drop-off rate at each step, and what you end up with is a graph that is also commonly referred to as a funnel. This episode is brought to you by PCBWay. I've been working with them on my custom keyboard project, and I was super impressed with their speed, quality and price, so I'm more than happy to recommend them to anyone who needs any kind of PCB manufacturing done, whether it's just for a couple of prototypes or if you need a larger production run. Link to their website, of course, down in the description. Back to the video. But what these numbers don't tell you is why people are dropping off, and the best way to discover that is, you guessed it, talking to them. Imagine! Now, if there's any UX experts among my audience, they're probably going, well, duh, of course. But for me, you know, a nerd, this was the biggest eye-opener in my journey of developing a web-based user interface. You see, we went into this experiment well prepared because I was lucky enough to have met one of the country's best UX specialists at the time, and he not only laid out a concrete plan as to how we should have interviewed our test subjects, but he was also there holding my hand throughout the whole process, which looked something like this. First, I called around 15 of my friends and acquaintances and set a date at which they could all meet me in person at an office we rented for this for this purpose in the capital. Each of them was given a 30-minute slot in which I'd give them a made-up scenario of how their website was broken and how they should use Codeable to resolve it. And the two things I strongly emphasized to them was A, we were not testing them, we were testing us. And B, they should think out loud as much as possible, because clearly I'm not a mind reader, so if I don't know what's going on in their heads during these tests, then I can't really take any action to improve the whole process. And you know what happened? The first person got stuck at a certain step, despite the fact that there was this huge next button on the page. I mean, I should know, right? I put that button there. So I thought to myself, okay, this is the first test subject. Maybe they're just confused, right? But then the next person got stuck at the exact same step, and so did the third and almost everyone that followed, which made me realize one thing: I'm confused. I'm confused as to how people think when using our application, because I thought the whole process was clear and straightforward, when, in fact, for the majority of people we performed these tests with that day, that wasn't the case at all. And the results? Well, after we implemented the changes that addressed the roadblocks in our customer journey, our monthly revenue went up because more people successfully converted to paying customers. And in Codable's case, because we already had thousands of paying customers per month, that meant thousands of dollars of difference. Honestly, that day was one of the most impactful days for me at Codable because it taught me one thing: humility. You see, us, developers, we often fall into this trap of feeling more powerful than we really are because we can write code, right? But the truth is, we're not writing code for ourselves. We write it to be used by others, and if it's not an enjoyable experience, I'm looking at you, Microsoft Outlook, then we simply, well, suck at our jobs. Now, obviously not every piece of code can be judged this way because some code is not meant to be used by others or has a very specific purpose to be written in a certain manner, but I'd argue that most developers work in teams at least, so the lowest common denominator needs to be the readability of the code so that others can work on it in case the original author is unavailable, gets sick, fired or whatever. But the other way around holds true just as well. Take Ubiquiti OS for example. I love the interface, it looks modern, well designed, feels right, but the problem that it has is, well, missing code. I used to own a bunch of their devices but sold them just because they were promising a particular feature for years but it never came. And it wasn't the hardware. IGMP snooping, which is what this feature is called, could work on their devices without much fuss, but they just chose to ignore thousands of voices on their support forums asking for it throughout the years. Honestly, in a way, I'm actually kinda grateful for this attitude, because if it wasn't for this particular missing feature, I doubt we'd be having this conversation today. So, how does all of what I just said tie into our product? Well, here's the thing. If I take any of the existing solutions out there, on the software side of things that is, we can put them on a scale between good looking but either closed source or missing features, or bad looking with poor user experience but open sourced on the other. Which brings us to the question we've been asking ourselves for the past year really, and would absolutely love your input down in the comments. Is it possible to build a router operating system that is A, open source, and B, has a great user experience? Well, I personally strongly believe that it is possible, but of course it comes at a cost. Literally. Developing our own operating system from scratch would likely take years and millions of dollars, and even then it's not a guarantee we'd succeed, which is why we devised a plan that would get us there way cheaper and way faster. You see, we believe we have an ace up our sleeve, one that's freely available online, and that ace is called Vector Packet Processing. I've already made a video on the topic, which I'll link to below the like button. Get it? I'll stop. Sorry. But if this is the first video you're seeing on the topic, here's a TLDR. Vector packet processing is a different way of, well, processing packets in which you put similar ones into a group called a vector. Developed and open sourced by Cisco, it speeds up networking performance quite significantly because the CPU only needs to process one packet in that vector and apply the same logic to all the other packets in the same vector, and that is quite the opposite to what your traditional Linux kernel networking does, which is take and process each packet independently. However, VPP does come with a significant drawback that we believe presents the perfect opportunity to build upon, and that's the fact that it has no user interface. Similar to ViOS, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, you interact with the software to the command line, and while some do find that appealing, most, I would argue, do not, which is where we come in. Now, keep an open mind to what I'm about to say next, because, while yes, I fully realize that this will not be a simple. What's with my English today? I fully realize that this will not be a simple task to undertake, but I'm also 100% confident that we can indeed pull it off. So, here we go. We take VPP that is developed by Cisco and already supports most of what 99% of us need when it comes to not just the basic aspects of networking, but also more advanced data center level stuff. Take their well-developed and documented API and build our own custom user interface on top. Honestly, it seems like the perfect match for us because the hardest part, so actual networking, is already there, which means we'd be able to focus on user experience, and here's where you would come in. Because we plan to open source the project from day one, you'd be able to test the hardware, provide feedback, and even contribute code should you have the ability, time, and knowledge to do so. And the best part, VPP already runs both on x86 and ARM platforms and is compatible with Linux as well as BSD systems, which means that even if you decided you didn't want to support our project but would still like to have a go at it at some point in the future, you'd be able to install it on one of your old PCs and play around with it. But how do we make any money then, if people can just download our stuff and run it on their own hardware? Well, I'm glad you asked, and the answer to that is performance. Yes, VPP does increase performance on its own when you bypass kernel, quite substantially in fact, but the bottleneck in these things is always the CPU, and the fact of the matter is that general purpose CPUs tend to struggle when it comes to 10 gigabit traffic. Now, obviously, you can buy a more powerful one, which will do the job just fine, but then you'll likely be paying more than what our device will cost just for the CPU alone, which is when Gateway, I believe, becomes a much more viable option. That's the idea anyway, but as I said, I'd love to hear your opinion on it. The only thing I ask is that you be as constructive as possible, because that obviously gives us a much clearer picture. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go and pack my clothes because I'm leaving for the Netherlands tomorrow. Subscribe, because I think you'll be very interested in what I'll do there in the following days, and yes, I will be bringing my camera with me. Tomasz from Slovenia, signing out.